I've been on this Bourse floor since before I could walk the Bourse floor. This one's gonna be a 20 on the face, and then as soon as I flip it over, that's a 10 on the back. What makes this so exciting is the fact that there's 13 pieces known. This was absolutely a nod to Benjamin Franklin. Let's call it what it was. If you've ever heard the expression caught red-handed, this is where it comes from. Hey, so I'm Bianca Bart from Executive Currency. Here we are at the Pan Show, Pittsburgh Association of Numismatics, just outside of Pittsburgh. We're hanging out in Monroeville at the convention center. As you can see behind me, the action is buzzing, a lot of collectors in the room. It's been a great show, great weekend.
So what is your experience with this show so far?
Yeah, so overall, I would say there's definitely been a pretty consistent buzz of collectors that have come on the Bourse floor, which is great. It's something that we love to see, especially traveling in from just outside of Detroit. It's most definitely been worth the trip for us. There's been some popular items, large size type and fancy serial numbers, I think have been the most popular things. And of course, we have a lot of local clients coming in, so they're looking for those hometown national banknotes as well.
Yeah. How long have you been in, I guess, the currency industry? It's a little bit of a different subsection than coins.
For sure.
How long have you been working in this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so definitely we know that there's 20 at least coin dealers for every paper money dealer out there, but good news is we're a small but mighty crowd. It's definitely growing. I was fortunate enough to get an early introduction. Actually, my dad had started the company. So he started the company in 1981. Okay. I knew from little up that's what I wanted to do. So I'm what I like to call a diaper dealer, meaning I've been on this Bourse floor since before I could walk the Bourse floor. So grew up in the industry, was able to take some internship opportunities, get some experience and some mentors on board with me, and have loved it.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about Executive Currency. I think the name kind of says it all, but for someone who has no idea what that even means, what does it mean to be Executive Currency?
Yeah, so I'd like to say we're a little bit all-encompassing. I think we originally started out with maybe a more focused brand as Executive Currency, and over the last couple of decades, we've certainly diversified and expanded our inventory. So we're kind of on a rebrand here as Executive Currency, Coins and Collectibles. So definitely try to make sure we have something for everyone. With that being said, we start from, we go back to our Fractionals, our Confederates, our obsoletes, and our broken banknotes, right up to those early days, 1861, when the United States said, hey, we need a federal system of our paper money. And that's when we created our demand note. So we have a demand note proof, and then of course you make your way through the large size series, which ends in 1923, transition to those 1928 small size, the money that we use in our pockets and wallets today. So we try to have really something for everyone, meaning that we have notes over 6 figures and right around $60 as well. So pretty diverse offering.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about this hobby in general, exonumia and numismatics, is literally anybody at any price range.
Absolutely.
Can build some sort of collection.
For sure, and paper money's no exception, right? We always think of coins and building an affordable coin collection, and with paper money, I think sometimes folks get a little intimidated. And I would say, don't be. First and foremost, collect what you like, okay? And if that means you have to save up a little bit longer so you can get that dream note, do it, all right? Your happiness is really, that's up to you. You're in control of it. Here at Executive Currency, we're happy to make sure that your collecting journey is a positive one. But as you mentioned, there's something out there for everyone at every price point. So ask questions. Education is free. So take advantage of shows like these or local shows. Go out, speak with experts, speak with dealers, and just get the exposure.
Do you remember, was there a specific coin or a specific bill that you remember that kind of really sparked your love for the hobby?
Yeah, so great question. I would say early on, my dad's written paper money books focused on U.S. paper money errors. So meaning there was a lot of error notes going through my hands. That's definitely what excited me, seeing, oh wow, our government makes mistakes, right? And these get out, and then you start to really kind of pull one layer at a time off of the printing process and start to digest it and understand it. So when you look at these mistakes today, you start to go, not only do I see that they happened, but I understand how they happened. Yeah. So for me, I think errors were definitely some of the early ones that got me in. I have a couple that we pulled out just to show, and these ones are fun. These ones are there's some error notes that you're gonna say, wow, you can spot what's wrong across the room. These are not those. These ones take a little bit more sophistication to get there, but we have 4 double denoms with us today, which is crazy. These guys are the king of errors. So the first one that I'm gonna show, this one's gonna be a 20 on the face, and then as soon as I flip it over, you're gonna see that the back, which is actually what was printed first, that's a 10 on the back.
What the heck?
I know, isn't that wild? So then we're gonna do it a couple more times here. This was actually my favorite double denom that we have right now. Reason being, it's a 10 on the front, and I'll show you what's coming in a second. But first, this is a numeral seal. So we're talking, this is one of our first small size notes that were printed. And then we flip it over and we have a 5 hanging out on the back there. All right, and then the last 2 I'll show you, again, double denoms. These 2 are gonna be pretty much the same thing here. Both of these are gonna be 5s on the face from the 1934 D series. And as I flip them over, you're gonna see both of these have those $10 on the back. So these dual denominations, these are exciting errors. These are definitely the kind of things where it takes that maybe more sophisticated palette. You know, of course they do. They come with a bigger price tag on them. The rarity is going to reflect that. If you're thinking about getting into a double denom, that's going to be about $50K just as an entry point on it. But with that being said, we said that everything is affordable, right? You can certainly find your price point. We have some errors starting at about $20 to $25. So just to give a little bit of an idea of some of those more affordable but still exciting error notes that you can enter into without breaking the bank. So a couple different options. You can certainly get into insufficient inking errors. This one's gonna take a little bit, maybe longer to recognize. It's not gonna jump out at you immediately. So what's going on with this one is if you take a look right in the upper right serial number, you'll notice they started to run out of ink in the inkwell.
Oh yeah.
So you can see that's what we call an insufficient inking error. So not as strong of a printing as we see on that other set of serial numbers. This one you can get into for about $40. Okay, so great example there. You want to continue to climb up something a little more dramatic, a little more noticeable, you can jump right into this dramatic ink smear. We like to call this one the melting Washington. As you can see, George Washington's just pretty much obliterated by some extra black ink in here. This one, dramatic, it's got the eye appeal. You don't have to be an error collector to notice or appreciate. Price point on this, around $200.
What, and how does that happen?
So typically what happens, and I don't want to go into all the nuances of our printing process, I would love to, I just don't think this video wants to go on for that long. What we see is we see that when our ink gets put into the recesses of our engraved plates, what happened here is we just had a little too much ink that went on. So as our uncut sheet of paper money came down, we noticed, oops, there's extra ink in there. That's really what's resulting in the ink smear error. So a couple other options, another ink smear error, but we're gonna see this one on the back this time. Great entry note here, this one's $70. And if you're looking for something a little more dramatic, now we have our printing on the wrong side. So we can see our serial numbers and seals are not where they're supposed to be, meaning the front of this note is completely open and empty, but our back is entirely overcrowded. This note that sits 1 point shy of gem, this one's gonna be about $500. This is what we call an overprint on back error. So lots of different options. Sometimes folks will collect these by different denominations. So different ways to assemble your sets as well.
So how does, for one of these,
Sure.
for example, how does somebody designate that as an error versus just a wet dollar bill?
Yeah, so great question. The big question that we face a lot being kind of experts in the error industry, and I'm going to take a moment and plug our book. So we do have an 5th edition of our error book that's coming out. It'll be released this summer. We're hoping to have it out by the A&A in August of 2025. So right around the corner for us. Hopefully that should answer some of these questions, but the short answer there is that there's a lot of folks that are out there that either deliberately are intending to be deceitful, or perhaps they just don't know better. So discerning and differentiating kind of a genuine error versus what I'm going to call maybe a man-made mistake, if we can go there and label it as that for this conversation, it takes practice, it takes skill set, and that's going to take time to acquire that knowledge. So what I would say in the meantime, well, perhaps you say, I want to get into collecting errors, but that feels a little intimidating. I don't want to get caught buying a bad error or something that isn't genuine. What do? What you do is you buy from a trusted dealer, right? Another great thing if you're just getting started, finding it in a PCGS or PMG or Legacy, one of those third-party holders allows you to collect with confidence a little bit easier. But first and foremost, make sure you're dealing with a reputable dealer.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of got over a little bit of the lower end.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about, I guess, the middle of the barrel,
Yep.
around the $50,000 range. What
Yeah.
kind of stuff do we have that's like really cool?
Yeah, so I would say right now, one of our, kind of exciting notes that I can guarantee it's gonna be the only one on the Bourse floor today, even at the bigger shows. I haven't found another one on the Bourse floor. And this is going to be our $100 Treasury Note here. So this is our 1891. It's a Friedberg 378. Now, let's talk about this note for just a second, okay? What we often think of is we think about the 1890 series. Reason being is that's what we call our ornate back. That's where we start to get all the excitement. Maybe some of you have heard of the watermelon or the grand watermelon, right? That's the trophy note. That's the ultimate trophy note for us. That grand watermelon is a multi-million-dollar note. When we talk about the watermelon, now we're talking about the $100 denomination. So similar to this one, okay, as I mentioned, this one is the 1891, so 1 year later than that watermelon design. But what makes this so exciting is the fact that there's 13 pieces known. Wow. So we talk about the watermelon, everybody gets excited. There's 33 of them. All right, so we're talking, so this has basically a third of the population. Fantastic note. This one's gonna put us right at 100,000 on this one. So again, great note, tough note, certainly a trophy.
Who is that on the offers?
Yeah, great question. So this one's actually going to be Farragut right on here. Couple other pieces that I would say are always great entry points. They're iconic designs, and when you think paper money collecting, some of these designs may come to mind. So first we're going to start with our educational series, issued in 3 denominations only from the series of 1896. They had the 1, the 2, and the 5. Little unknown fact, or maybe lesser known fact, is that they actually had a proposed design for the $10 denomination. It just never made its way to actually be approved and put into circulation.
So they just hadn't, that didn't happen?
Never actually created it. So they had the proposed design. So we start with our one. They each feature their own allegorical images. As we see here, this is history instructing youth. Fun story on the back here. They put George and Martha Washington on the back. They were very deliberate about placing that 1 between them. And the story there is that no one will come between our first president and first lady.
Wow.
As
Well,
we,
it did.
it did. It did, exactly, right? So we look at that one, and if you're just curious on price point, this example right here, it's gonna be about $3,000. You can get into for a few $100s. Obviously, they're not gonna come as nice. They're gonna have some stories behind them. So next we have our $2 1896 educational note, science presenting steam and electricity to commerce and manufacture. On the back, we see 2 pioneers of our industrial revolution. We have Fulton and Morse sitting on the back of this. This note being a Gem 65 PPQ. As you can see, it's preserved in a nice high grade. This one's gonna be around 15,000. And last but not least, this may be the favorite of the educational series. This is going to be our $5 educational. Once again, 1896, the only option for this series. And the allegorical image on the face of this one is electricity as the dominant force in the world.
Wow.
So,
That's kind of crazy.
it's crazy, yeah. So, I mean, this was absolutely a nod to Benjamin Franklin. Let's call it what it was. And then on the back of this one, you're going to see Grant and Sheridan featured on the back. So, again, when we're thinking iconic banknotes, we're thinking the educational series.
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit about what the historical relevance is of those 3 notes?
Yeah, so short answer there. So of course, we're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. We have a lot of changes that are happening in our country, right? So with that being said, not only are there a lot of exciting things happening in terms of our technology, our medicine, right? We've talked about the invention of electricity, and we're thinking now about our locomotives. And so all of these great things are happening in all of these different areas. But one thing we also have to be really mindful of is that we didn't have the same technology in place that we do today for our paper money, which is exactly why we see so many different designs in a short period of time. Reason being, we're trying to combat the counterfeiting that was absolutely prevalent and taking place during that time. So you're gonna see a lot of different anti-counterfeiting features. These ones in particular, they're gonna have some fibers, some colored fibers within there. That's not uncommon at all. As we move on to another popular series, this is gonna be our 1869 rainbow notes, right? We certainly have heard of these. These are colorful, these are exciting. These ones come, all the way through. These are what you absolutely can build a denomination set in. As you get to those higher denominations, it gets more expensive, but good news is that they are available in all grades, meaning you can get them in a lot of good price points. Oh, I'm gonna be honest with you. They're iconic, which means they can be a little bit more expensive, particularly if we're thinking about, say, this 50 that's here. Even though this one doesn't necessarily look like it's in the best shape, she's picked up some miles, she has some stories behind her. With that being said, it's a rare note. So this one right here, this is about $20,000 for the $50 rainbow. And now let's talk about some fun stuff. We've talked about some of our older designs. Let me show you one of my favorite things that we brought here to the pan show. These things just get everybody going crazy. This is the most asked about item that we have hanging out in our case. And what are they? They're exploding die packs. So maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't, but we're gonna talk about them because they are so fun. They're one of my favorites. But to talk about them, let's really make sure we understand them. So what's going on if we look at these? There's 4 pieces of double-sided tape hanging out in each of the margins on each side. So it's the same exact thing if we flip it over. They took out the middle 2/3 of the note, so you can see it's missing, right? Something else is in there, and we'll talk about what that is in just a second. And the reason for that is because they wanted to redeem the serial numbers. So we were able to take them out, get those serial numbers redeemed, and now that that's happened, these were created by a company called Secure Pack. So what they did, and these are still used in banks in small town America, these have electronic components, and now here's the fun part. Not only do they have electronic components, let me show you why they have those electronic components, and that is for this right here. What is that? Great question. It's what we call our powdered die. So this is really what the exploding die pack comes from, okay? Reason being, let's say I'm gonna go rob a bank today. What a fun way to start my day. What do? I go in there. Remember we talked about these 4 pieces of double-sided tape? Well, if I were a bank robber and you tried to hand me this, I would go, something doesn't look quite right. This doesn't look like money. So what they would do is they would put a full-sized $20 bill on both sides. So if I go in to try to rob a bank, what's gonna happen? The teller's gonna give me all their money, and they're gonna give me one of these too, or maybe a couple of these die packs. Toss it right in my bag. As I walk out the door, there's gonna be a delayed detonation. So right on the door frame, typically you're gonna have a delayed detonation somewhere in the wheelhouse of 45 seconds to 2 minutes later. And if you've ever heard the expression caught red-handed, this is where it comes from.
That's where it comes from?
So all of this dye is gonna explode, right? It's gonna stain the money, it's gonna stain the robber. And not only does it buy, our law enforcement a little bit of time, but it makes identification pretty easy. And so I had mentioned they're still in use today. Where? They're in use in smaller towns, quite honestly. But we know that today we have things such as DNA, video surveillance, meaning we don't necessarily need these. There's not the same need for these as there once was. Yeah. But in those smaller towns, they're absolutely still used. But now here they are available as a collectible. These are fantastic. Everybody gets excited about them. The market has really gone crazy, particularly on those that have been since slab. So those that are sitting in those acrylic hard cases definitely are driving the market up. Those things are bringing around $1,200 to $1,400 consistently. We're offering our raw ones at $800. Nice. So for me personally, I like them raw because you get to play with them the way we just did, right? Yeah. We get to open up those back covers and see the die and then look at the front and see the electronic components.
When would these have been made?
Yeah, so good question. So as you can see, we actually have a couple different designs here. So this one right here, this one's gonna be one of our older designs, likely going to have been, from 70s, 80s, 90s. Whereas we see this one gonna be a little bit newer on our top bill, gonna hit us in late 90s to early 2000s.
Okay, I'd assume you attend a lot of coin shows, you're
Do.
at a lot of coin
Yep.
booths. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen happen at a coin show?
I would say the wildest story that I have for you on this is there were a few dealers that were trying to, let's say, cement a transaction, all right? And I'm not gonna give too much information because I don't want this story to go back to those dealers,
sure.
but this was wild for me and I loved it. So this was an expensive coin or expensive deal. We're talking 7 figures. Okay. And so with that being said, the two of them just couldn't quite come together on a number. And it got to the point where they're taking Rolexes off and throwing it in the middle. They're like, well, what about this? What about this? And it just became a game. And the way that this multi-million-dollar deal got settled was through an arm wrestling contest. And so I was fortunate enough to sit there and observe that. And, Listen, we've been blessed to be able to do some high figure deals, but I will tell you, never have I ever gotten to do an arm wrestling competition. You know, we certainly have taken some notes, and we call it heads and tails, right? Come up with a price and flip the note and see what happens. So that's fun, but watching an arm wrestling competition, that was great. I would say somebody brought their pet turtle for us to personally babysit one time, so that was...
Sounds like an unnecessary responsibility to
One-
put on your shoulders.
100%. So, you know, we came here to buy and sell coins and paper money, and we had the experience of babysitting a box turtle named Ralph. So that was...
Sales?
You know, he did his best. We'll say that. He did his best.
Why should somebody collect paper money versus coins?
Yeah, great question. So I would say first and foremost, I'm going to step back and answer your question a little bit differently. And the reason is because you don't have to choose one or the other. All right, that's the beautiful thing about it. As I started, you know, early on in this conversation, I said, collect what you like, collect what you love. Where your passion is where your collection should be and should reflect. So listen, if you like coins, you like Morgan dollars, and that's what you've collected, no reason to change the theme. We've got a note for that too. So we have our $5 1886 silver certificate. It's our Morgan silver dollar back. Again, popular note.
That's awesome.
This is a perfect note, kind of that great transition for folks that have a history or have a passion for collecting coins and are maybe thinking about coming to the dark side, we'll say. So with that being said, this silver dollar back, it's always gonna turn heads. The Morgans are easily recognizable. But as we talked about, you know, if you were a coin collector, are a coin collector, and you want to step out and you want to get into paper money, by all means, go to your show. There's a lot of great resources available online. Education is free. So ask the questions, be willing to learn, and when the right note comes along, you'll know. And at Executive Currency, if we can do anything to help, we're here.
Awesome. Is there a website or email for anybody to...
Yeah, thanks. So you can find us right at executivecurrency.com. We're on there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We're on eBay at Executive Currency as well. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. So my email is just Bianca, and I know that's not a name you hear every day, so that's BIANCA at executivecurrency.com.